Good morning. Wow, you guys are awake? Hey, how about that Ebola scare this week, huh? Or the past few weeks, huh? Well, there's a lot of things going on in the world, and that Ebola scare kind of hit home a little bit, right? What happened? Usually, I don't really pay attention to it. It's just one of those news that it happened, but it kind of hit home because one of the sister, Nina Phan, right? She's Vietnamese. Man, that's kind of close, isn't it? And then not only that, she's a believer. I'm like, wow, God, what's going on? Right? I mean, all these things that happened because she was one of the health workers that was taking care of Mr. Thomas Duncan arriving from Liberia, and he had Ebola, and life just got disrupted. People were scared to go to crowded places, and people are canceling all their travel plan, and the airline is losing money, and life just got disrupted just because of this virus, right? Not only that, and then you hear the news about terrorism, right? You hear about ISIS. You hear about they're beheading all these journalists, right? And you don't think it's going to happen in America. And they say, well, we're coming for you. And next thing you know, it happened in America, right? You hear this guy from Oklahoma, or somewhere in the Midwest, or what? The guy was a convert, a Muslim convert, and what happened? He was beheading one of his co-workers. And then this guy over the weekend was a Muslim convert as well, and he took an axe onto the in New York City, right? And he started whacking all the police officers. I mean, it's starting to happen in America, right? And then I hear about. I would never thought it's going to happen in America, but you guys heard about a thing that happened in Houston, right? The city of Houston is making a subpoena all these pastors to hand over their sermon and their speeches and their communication with their congregation. Because why? Because they were leading the opposition about the transgender. It's called the Houston Equal Right Ordinance. It's the bill it's the bathroom bill that allow the male that think that they're female, the transgender, to use the female bathroom. So all these pastors was leading the opposition against this bill. So now the city of Houston was led by a gay mayor that's wanted all their communication, because now she thinks it's a hate. It's like a hate crime. So you see, I can go on and on about many issues that surround our life, but however, the one thing that remained the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow is God. No matter what happened in the world, no matter what happened around us, no matter what happened to us, God remained the same. Today, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. God will still be God no matter what happened to us. He is still in control. Now, how we react to the thing that happened to us or around us will answer the number one question. Who is in control? Are we in control of the Ebola outbreak? Are we in control of these ISIS terrorism? No. The only thing that's limiting God in your life is you. It's me. It's us. Now, if you have your Bible, let's open up to Genesis chapter 20. We'll continue on with this, with the life of Abraham in Genesis, right? Now, apparently Abraham took control away from God again. As we read these verses, we can see that Abraham, he had an experience with God. His life, the way he walked with God, rescued him. His faith with God, it should be strengthened, right? But apparently, he took control away from God again. You got to remember in the past, God rescued him, and he told Abraham to go to where? To go to the Negev and live there, right? In verse 20, it said, now Abraham moved on from there into the region of Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. He's supposed to be in Negev. But then he moved on from there into the region of Negev and lived between the Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed in Gerar. And there Abraham said to his wife Sarah, she is my sister. Then Abimelech, king of the Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. This is the same what happened when he left for Egypt, right? He told the same thing. She is my sister, right? So the king went and said, because Sarah is beautiful, right? So the king took her, and then, as you can see in verse 3, God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, you are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is a married woman. Now, as you can see, Abraham is just like us, right? He is human, right? He is human. I mean, maybe he have a higher relationship than us with God, but he is like Elijah, Moses. We can fall just as hard or make the same seemingly brainless mistake that were made in some of these people's lives. Abraham, he had a relationship with God, but he still make the same type of mistake. Abraham actually believed that God was not capable of protecting him from the people of Gerar. Abraham believed that since there was no worship or fear of his God in Gerar, that ultimately God was not there or capable of providing him the same protection that he received in the great plain of Mamre. Now, when I read the story of this nurse, Nina Pham, right? She was in the hospital. And she prayed, and other people prayed for her. And at the end, when they released her from the hospital, she said, what? I believe in the power of prayer. I pray to God. I know God will answer me, right? God is still in control. Chapter 20 of Genesis is yet another chapter in our life that let us know that God will still be God no matter what happens around us or no matter what we do. When everything seems like it's falling apart, that's when God is putting things together just the way He wants it. The first thing I want us all to learn is this. When God is not the center of your life, it leads you to wonder, wander, and waver. When God is not the center of your life, it leads you to wonder, wander, and waver. So many times, right? In verse 1, it said, now Abraham had moved on from the region. God told him to go to the Negev. God told him that is the best place for him. But yet, after a while, after we were comfortable, we started to move on and say, well, maybe we should do things on our own. Maybe we should, we're fine here. Let's conquer. Let's do this. When we don't see any great supernatural evidence of God working in our life, and we begin to wonder if God is still there at work in our life. When we begin to wonder, then we begin to wander. Then we begin to waver. We begin wondering if God has left or has chosen to depart. Lead us to begin to wander spiritually, mentally, and spiritually. We wander from church to church, ministry to ministry, or thought to thought, wandering and wandering back and forth. We go until we begin to waver in our faith. We begin to waver in our dedication and our commitment to God. So look what happened here. Abraham was comfortable. God blessed him, right? He's in a good place. But yet he's starting to move on from where God wanted him to be. And he moved on to the Kadesh and Shur, right? And then he started to lie again. He told the king, he went there and look at his reason, right? Look at his reason in verse 11. This is his reason. I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place. They will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother. She became my wife. And when God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, this is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, said of me, he is my brother. So he's already planned this stuff out, right? He's already planning stuff out. No matter where he goes, Sarah, I know you're my wife, but just tell everybody else that you're my sister. Abraham had just witnessed the destruction of two cities, right? He saw the rising of the smoke from the distance, and he sat under the tree and overlooked the plain. He saw God prophecy against those cities carry out before his eye. But some time has passed, and that's catastrophe. Some water has flowed under the bridge. Abraham got busy with the herd and the crop and the harvest and the household and the servant, and he probably hasn't really spoke to God in some time. And he probably haven't seen God face to face, like Genesis 18. And he's beginning to wonder if God is still going to carry through with his promises. Or maybe God will need his help to accomplish all that he needs to accomplish. After all, there's a lot to do, and God shouldn't be concerned with the little boring and mundane area of his life. He's wondering, and pretty soon he began to wander. He began to wander spiritually. He began to wander physically. He began to wander mentally. Similarly, more important thing other than God and occupying his mind, his thought, and his action. I came across this story. There's an old eagle, right? One morning he was out looking for a meal for breakfast. And he was flying along the river, and he looked down, and he saw the little mouse that on this piece of ice that would break off from the snow, from the ice, and was flowing down the river, and that the little mouse was stuck into that little ice. And that eagle was thinking, hey, this is a great thing. It's a good meal. And it's not moving anything. It doesn't go anywhere. It got stuck in that ice and flown down the river. So this eagle was like, oh, thank God. So he flew down, got on to the top of that ice. He killed that mouse. He killed us now. Was even eating. It was eating that mouse, and as he looked down the stream, the eye was floating down the stream, and there's a waterfall, right? It's gonna fall down to the depth below. But the eagle is thinking, hey, you know what? By that time, I'll spread my wing and I'll fly up and I'll escape. So the eagle was having a meal of his life. His breakfast, great breakfast. He was chomping on the bit and he's eating that mouse. And as the ice got closer to the edge, and he's going, you know what? I'll just take this last bite. I'll eat it. And he started to spread his wing. But at that time it was too late because the heat from his claw, when he got on top of that ice, it's kind of melting that ice, and it was froze up. Now he's stuck. When he spread his wings on to fly, he couldn't dislodge his legs, his claw. It was froze up. So by the time he spread his wing, the ice got so heavy, and what happened? It dragged him all the way down. He died. A lot of time our life is like that. We are overconfident, thinking that it can never happen to us, right? I mean, given the right circumstance, any of us can walk away from God and wander and waver, right? A lot of time when we look at it, yeah, that's God's blessing. But when God sent us a warning, we said it's okay. We're strong. And we're like that. It's okay. When that time comes, I'll walk away. I'll walk away from it, just like that eagle. But when our feet are lodged onto that ice and we cannot dislodge it, by that time comes, it's too late. When we're trying to escape, it's too late. Abraham's actions are the stereotypical of someone that is not letting God to be the center of their life. Just remember that when God is not the center of your life, it leads you to wander, and to waver. And Abraham waver, and out come the word, right? That's the second thing I want you guys to learn, is that when we become entangled or twisted up in a lie, the truth become half-truth. Now, he told Abimelech, the king, that she is his sister, which is half true, right? Which is half true. She's also his wife. Abraham lets his wandering and his wavering drive his mouth. You know the Bible tells us in James chapter 3, verse 5 to 9 said this. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body. It makes great boast. Consider what is great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a whirl of evil among the part of the body. It corrupt the whole person, set the whole course and of his life on fire, and is self set on fire by hell. All kind of animal, bird, reptile, and creature of the sea are being tamed and have been tamed by man. But no man can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men we have been made in God likeness. Now, this whole Ebola thing, right? I'm sorry, I have to go back to this Ebola thing because it's kind of caught my mind, kind of intrigued me a little bit, right? So at first, the CDC came out and said, hey, the nurse did not follow the protocol, right? And then they came out and said, you're not going to catch it airborne, right? You don't even have to cover anything up. But yet when we saw on TV, when people from Africa were treating the Ebola, they were all covered up. But yet here the CDC is telling them, hey, don't worry about it. There's not an outbreak. It's not, you can't catch it, airborne, right? And now they came out again. They said, well, here's the protocol. You gotta be all covered up to treat the Ebola patient. So what is the truth? What is the truth? Many years ago, there's a man, he conned his way into an orchestra of the Emperor of China. Back then, in China, the Emperor, they have the whole musical section, right? So this guy, he could not play a note. He couldn't even read music. So whenever the group practiced or performed, he took his flute. He took a flute, right? He put it up to his mouth, pretending that he know how to play. So at that time, everything was great. He was making a comfortable living, right? They pay him a salary. The king was paying a salary for the music, right? But all this time, every time they come out and play for the king, for the emperor, he put up his flute and kind of faked it and pretend to play. So one day the emperor requests a solo from each musician. Now, at this time, this guy got a little bit nervous because he couldn't read notes, he couldn't even play the flute, he didn't know anything about music. He would just faked it to make some money. So there wasn't enough time to learn how to play the instrument, right? He pretended to be sick. So he told the emperor, I can't play today, I was sick. But the royal physician looked at him and checked him and said, you're not sick. It's okay, you can play. So on the day of his performance, the imposter took poison and kill himself because there's no way that he can face the music. Right? That's where he wrote a suicide note to the emperor and say he refused to play because he refused to face the music. Now just imagine, God doesn't speak to us in half-truth. Can you imagine God telling you there's a half chance that you will go to heaven? Or if God, when you got to heaven right at the door and God is telling you, oh no, this place is not true. No, this is my house. You're still out there. So if God would tell you something different, how would you feel? So many times our inaction or our action will drive us to say something that we either shouldn't say at all or is it half true, stretched to fit, or inappropriate action. Why do we lie? Why do we tell half truth? It's because everything is because of us. It's all for our own benefit. We're hiding something, right? It's not because of God. Because we think that we are still in control of our lives. In Proverbs chapter 30, verse 8 says, keep falsehood and lie far from me. Give me neither property nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. How many of us love to lie? How many of us love to say white lies so that it wouldn't affect other people. It wouldn't hurt other people as bad. How many of us love to do that? But we do it every single day. Telling half-truth, telling lie. Why? Because we think that we are in control of our lives. We think that thing that happened to us, that we have control over it. But when things happen, what happened? Now, we start to tell a little white lie to get out of it. Look at verse 4. Now, Abimelech had not gone near her, so he said to the Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did he not say to me, she is my sister? And didn't he also say, he is my brother? I have done this with a clear conscience and a clean hand. Then God come to him in a dream again. This is the second time. And God said what? Yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all who belong to you will die. Now that's God's grace. Abimelech here he's not a believer. When I read this section here, it talks about God's grace to Abraham. Right? God's grace to Abraham. So early the next morning, Abimelech summoned all his officials, and when he told them all that had happened, they were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham in and said, what have you done to us? Doesn't this sound familiar? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should never be done. And Abimelech asked Abraham, what was your reason for doing this? Then Abraham gave him his reason. Hey, there is surely no fear of God in this place. They will kill me because of my wife. Now Abraham is thinking that God would not protect him in this place. He doesn't have faith that God will protect him wherever he goes. He forgot about Egypt. He forgot about how God rescued his nephew Lot. A lot of times we are like that. We experience life with God. When God blesses us, when God rescues us, great. At that moment in time, we praise God, we thank God. But after a while, when we're comfortable and we have moved on with our life, and we have other things that happen to us or around us, then we tend to forget what God had done in the past. The third thing is that God's grace is overflowing, even though we don't deserve any of it. Right? The Philistine king was threatened in a dream when he apparently had done nothing wrong. The good thing is that God will still be God no matter what Abraham does. God's grace still flowing even though we don't deserve any of it. And what God chooses to do in any particular situation or circumstance is entirely up to him. However, we must also remember that these people that Abraham talked to were very barbaric people. People in this day and time, though, thought nothing of sacrificing their children and servants to appease their gods and to get whatever they wanted. God knew that any other way would not have been accepted by the Philistine king. This king thoroughly understood war, death, and the sovereign right of the king. He was given an ultimatum, and he graciously took it. So many times we become entangled in a web of lies and deceit, and God steps in and corrects the situation either through a person we wrong or some other way. We tell ourselves that the same thing that Abraham said in verse 11, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. A lot of times that's how we live our life. Even though God has blessed us and God has rescued us, but when we face a situation right here, now, at this entire moment, we tend to do things on our own. And we think that God will not protect us for whatever reason. So we took it upon ourselves to do things, to get ourselves out of our situation. I came across a story. Two men was best friend growing up. And somehow the path of life kind of lead them separately. And one became successful, became a lawyer and a judge. and one became a criminal. And one day, that criminal was brought in. He got arrested and was brought into a courtroom and faced a judge who is his friend. His friend was heartbroken and sitting there looking at his childhood best friend. And because of his integrity, he cannot just let him go. His friend was guilty. His friend was guilty of a crime that now, as a judge, he had to rule on this. So he found his friend guilty and fined his friend some X amount of money. His friend at that time had no money. He was a criminal. But after the judgment, what that guy did was all about grace. He walked down from that stand, took off his robe. He wrote his friend a check for the same amount that was fined and gave that to his friend to pay for his crime. Now that is grace. This is what God does in Jesus. He sentenced us to death for our sin, but then stepped down from heaven and paid for our sin in full with his death. I want to remind all of us this morning that God is bigger than your valley. And you know that it's easier to serve the Lord when we are on a mountaintop, and it's easier when we are excited about the Lord, about his work. However, when we go into one of these valley experiences of life, he is still God. When we enter the valley of physical pain, he is still God. When we enter the valley of spiritual discouragement, he is still God. When we enter the valley of sorrow, he is still God. Regardless of the valley we are forced to enter, we will find out that he is still God. Remember, God without man is still God, but man without God is nothing. God counts your every tear. He hears your every prayer. He knows your every need. You may not feel him next to you right now, but there's one thing you can be certain of. He has not forgotten you, and he will work things out for you at the right time. Never lose hope. Let God have control of your life. I want to ask Allah to come up here to share this last song with you. Let's all stand up and stand up. Have we moved away from where God wants us to be? Have we moved to a place that we are less Christian? Have we took back control from God? No matter what happened in our life, no matter what happens around us, God is still God.
The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty, let all the earth rejoice, let all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, darkness tries